So today we're going to talk about the chamber problem. I've made a couple videos like this in the past for Yoru and Reyna and some of the problems the devs might face with those agents. But today we're going to focus on the chamber problem. And you all know pretty much what the chamber problem is. It doesn't take a genius to work out what the chamber problem is. He's just too strong. But one particular thing is too strong, and we're going to dive into that a bit later. But this was back from September, I think. Yes, State of the Agent September. And the devs of the game mentioned that, there's still work to be done here and will continue to be a focus for us moving forward regarding Chamber and the strength of Chamber. So even the devs as well understand the Chamber problem. And I think, in time, hopefully pretty soon, we will eventually have a fix for the Chamber problem. Now, for those of you who have been living under a complete rock for a very long time at this point, Chamber has been basically the meta agent in Valorant for quite a while now. Ever since probably like March, after the Jett nerfs, Chamber kind of came in, fulfilled that role, and we'll get to that in a bit, and became basically the most picked agent pretty much at every Valorant tournament from then on. And you can see this is from Champs 2022, where Chamber is still top of the pile at 67% overall at that tournament, and that kind of has been the way it has been for a very long time. And now I do think that some people get a little confused with the strength of Chamber, because a lot of people will, talk about how the Headhunter is a strong ability, or the ult is a very powerful ult as well. And those, might be true, but the real Chamber problem comes with his E ability, his free ability, the ability you get every round no matter what, and that is his rendezvous and his ability to teleport away for free. But the devs know that this is a problem. The devs understand that Chamber is very strong, and they have tried to nerf Chamber. The problem that they have faced, though, is that E ability is kind of the core of the character. Those free abilities that you get at the start of every round are kind of the most important abilities in terms of, what the character is meant to represent in the game. And so they have nerfed Chamber multiple times at this point, trying to get that pick rate down. And it has come down a bit. It's not like their nerfs have done absolutely nothing, but it still hasn't quite got there. And you can see, we initially got the trademark nerf here where, the charges went from 2 to 1, the price increase as well, there was an audio range increase, and then we got the big nerfs in 5.03 where, the slow durations were coming up, the Headhunter bullets went up, the rendezvous times went up as well, and if you got destroyed, the time went up as well, and the radius decreased, and the ult went from 7 to 8. A lot of kind of tertiary nerfs to basically everything else in Chamber's kit got nerfed, except from that ability to escape from that first fight. That is the one thing they really, really didn't change, or didn't want to change. But that, unfortunately for the devs, is the key problem. And there is a quote that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, because this exact thing played out basically last year, and all of last year as well, where Jett was the dominant force in the metagame, having an 82% pick rate here at Champs 2021, higher than Chamber really ever did, I think, in any top-tier tournament. And yet they kind of made the same mistake with Jett as well, where it took a long time for Jett to be nerfed in the correct way. Where again, if we look at the different nerfs that Jett received, you've got the Cloudburst going from 7 to 4.5 seconds. You've got the ult going from 6 to 7. No longer breaks Cypher's trips. Updraft cost increase. Cloudburst cost increase. We keep going. The right click no longer recharges on a kill of the ult. The Cloudburst goes from 3 to 2. The weapon equip time is increased. The cost of the updraft is increased. Literally everything. But it took until patch 4.08 where Jett finally, the tailwind itself, finally got nerfed to when you activated, you couldn't dash straight away. And finally, this was the thing that kind of fixed Jett and made her kind of a balanced agent overall, because that escape mechanic, the ability to get away from that first fight, particularly when paired with an operator as well, it is just too strong in this game, and it has been shown to be too strong in this game, and we've seen both Jett and now Chamber as well, basically abuse that over and over and over again, and we have seen with both of these agents at this point that the devs have tried basically nerfing everything else they could possibly think of, but Jett wasn't fixed until the actual effect of dashing away was finally nerfed itself. And so that is the Chamber problem. The devs have this ability that they really want to keep alive for Chamber because that's what he was designed to do. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work that well in a game of Valorant, and it's just too strong, particularly when paired with an operator as well. So something needs to be done. So what will they actually do? Well, everyone will have their own suggestions on how to nerf Chamber, of course. But to me, the crucial point of it all is forget everything else. The ult, whatever you might think about any of the other abilities, forget it. It doesn't matter. Or if you want to change the rendezvous in a way that will not kind of fully impact that first teleport away, it doesn't matter. We've seen at this point that you can keep nerfing those things over and over and over again. But the point is, if I can get a kill with an op and guarantee that I can be likely in a 5v4 and teleport away and there's no way to trade me, that is too strong in this game. So you have to tackle the initial rendezvous point. That first teleport away has to be changed in some way to make it more fair. And so to me, there really is only two ways of nerfing this, essentially, that I can think of at least. Maybe the devs have something under their sleeve, you know, and they're going to come up with some very creative way of trying to balance Chamber. But obviously one thing would be just to increase the time of the rendezvous. Currently it takes 1.3 seconds from when you click the button to actually, you know, appear on the other side, essentially, of the other anchor point. And so obviously one thing you could do is just increase the time, right? Make the time more that it takes, make that animation longer that it takes for Chamber to get away. That would fix that first initial problem. It wouldn't make it so easy for him to get away. You might be able to get a kill with it. The problem with this is there probably is a perfect number in there that might be balanced. The problem is finding that number is going to be incredibly difficult. And the line between Chamber still being too good with the rendezvous and not being useful at all if it takes too long, I feel is very, very thin margins. And as I said, there probably is a perfect number in there, but finding it is going to be extremely difficult. And I would fear that if they did change the rendezvous in this kind of way, that we'd end up with either a change that didn't make a difference or would just make Chamber completely useless. But the only other way I can really see them doing it is copying off the work that they did before with the jet dash, where they changed it so that you have to first press the ability to activate a time window that then you can use that ability in. And I think for Chamber, maybe they just copy what they did with the jet and import it over to Chamber. Maybe the time is a little bit different overall because Chamber is more rooted to the spot than Jet is. You know, maybe they give him more leeway with the time or whatever it might include, right? But just that taking that initial idea of having to activate it first and then a time window comes up, and if you don't use it in that time window, tough luck. You used it, essentially, right? And that ability is then gone. Now, with Chamber, of course, he isn't a duelist, so it would come back after a certain amount of time. You might see that as a fair compromise for him having to be rooted to the spot, unlike Jet. So you might think that that is actually okay, and that is still fine. But I think the big thing with this change is that if they did go for something like this, it would fix the initial problem, right? The Chamber player would have to kind of find the right timing or feel the timing of when they might need to teleport away. And then if they don't have it, sucks. Tough luck. You don't have it anymore. You're going to have to play like every other agent would, and you're going to struggle a bit more with that operator or being on that angle. You can't hold that angle essentially forever without feeling very, very brave. And so that is the Chamber problem, and that is just my suggestion for it. Maybe you guys have some suggestions as well of how you might be able to change the rendezvous effect, but to me it must target that initial teleport away. Otherwise, as we've seen, kind of every change won't make that much bit of a difference, right? Maybe you could make some more tertiary changes that, you know, bring Chamber from 67% to, you know, 60%. But it's not going to have the overall impact like we saw the Jet nerf had, where Jet went from, you know, 70, 80% to now a much more healthy 31%. The idea is we need to take this 67 down to something like 30, and we really need to target that initial rendezvous if we're gonna make that the case. Now, maybe you think that that would make Chamber too weak. Of course, you could buff him back in other areas if it did. I don't think that that would be a problem at all. Give him 2 trademarks, make the Headhunter 100 again, whatever it would be, right? I don't really care. The main thing is you must target the initial teleport away.